Jimmy came from Durham University. He did sports science there. He applied to be a postgrad here to teach PE and coach a bit of rugby. And I interviewed all the postgrads, and he stood out.
He was so good, they kept him on. He was in the sports department, he taught A-level, GCSE PE, he also ran rugby teams, netball teams. He was pretty much the first male member of staff in the netball department. He was involved in CCF, pretty much everything. Any trip that was going on he was involved in, but he was a huge part of the sports department. And he used his degree to his full use. And then he continued here doing the sport, doing CCF, and just getting involved as much as possible.
He was clearly a talented and enthusiastic and ambitious youngster.
My first year here, I actually shadowed him for the first term, and I'd been teaching a good 10 years longer than Jimmy, and I have to say, after the first few lessons I thought, that's exactly how I want to teach. Just the way he was very relaxed.
And he very quickly became a star in the classroom, a star on the games field with his coaching, and a brilliant pastoral person who boys and girls wanted to talk to and listen to.
The pupils clearly loved him. He had the ability to have their attention the whole time, and the staff did. He was just one of those people who, whenever you were with him, he made you feel quite special. And he had this sarcastic way about him, but it just made you feel like you want to be with him and be like him. He had lots of traits that the kids would admire. He had a tendency to the kids would always go to him very approachable, and they just admired what he gave the school. He was just very fun and very normal, and just had this humour that they seemed to sort of link to quite easily, which maybe they're not used to as well.
And his career was on the fast track, I would say. At the time when he was diagnosed with that dreadful disease.
He was diagnosed, and whilst we all thought that it was going to be okay, he suffered with a lot of backache. Initially thought it was just a rugby injury.
He had phenomenal pain and was diagnosed, and then he rang me, and that was one of the worst moments of my life when he said that he had cancer and that it was a serious cancer, and he was told that at that point. And he was distraught at that point because he knew the implications of it. The extraordinary emotion that he felt at that point when he told me, and subsequent to that, was obviously understandable. But from then on, he kind of led from the front.
He wasn't miserable. He was very matter of fact. It was the people around him he actually made us a little bit more optimistic about things and what could happen.
He was just remarkably positive. I think deep down he knew that it was probably terminal at that point, but it wasn't declared terminal until sometime later.
But when he was given the news that he only had 6 months, he still was very optimistic. He lived his life. Every weekend, in between chemo, in between treatment, he would live his life with his friends. He organised everything around the weekends to be able to see all the people he wanted to see.
It wasn't going to be a secret. It wasn't going to be something to sulk about or to be miserable about. He continued to live his life absolutely to the full.
But never at any stage was he maudlin or miserable about what was happening. And that was quite an inspiration. I think the kids were so surprised that we would still see him walking around right until the end, being himself, being his normal self, and just not allowing anyone to be negative. And that was quite an inspiration. That, for us, made you realise that you had to live your life.
At that point, emotions right across the school were very high. So his response to that was to tell the common room in person, to speak in person to the houses that he'd been associated with, not to duck it, but to have the guts to do that on a personal level. And I think that leadership that he showed and the guts that he showed was compelling.
You know, someone at 26 years of age was able to stand in front of the whole common room, in front of all the kids in the boarding house, and tell them, this is it, this is how it is, let's just get on with it and live my life for the next 6 months.
And the school reacted to it in a positive way. And I think, you know, we could have been looking at meltdown, I think, from a school point of view, because he was much loved for reasons which we may talk about in a minute. But he didn't allow that to happen. He sort of said, look, you know, I'm just a guy from Wigan, and I'm enjoying life to the full, and I'm going to continue to do that. I don't want anybody getting overly upset or collapsing because of what's happening to me. We're going to just kick on. We're going to jog on, which is the phrase he used, and that's what happened. So I think, you know, his leadership at that point was stunning.
We had a big party in October when his birthday is, a year before he died.
Which he advertised as Jimmy's death party, which was just an extraordinary idea and typical of his sense of humour. You know, how can you do that? I mean, how can you possibly expect 350 people to come to the dining hall having, you know, accepted an invitation with that title? And
it was pretty much fancy dress theme. He organised what we were all going to wear. The theme was very much sort of 70s, 80s.
And then at the party, he danced and he sang. You know, he was unwell. But he ensured that everybody had an amazing evening. He created a band as well, a dancing group of his teachers, and they all sang one of his favourite Motown. He loved Motown music, so he sang a song. So yeah, the party was pretty epic. Photo booth, that always sticks in my mind about how much fun we had taking photos with Jimmy, and just on the night in general, he organised every single aspect of it. He had his friends from Durham, friends from Rossall. There was hundreds of us here, all the staff here who could come, and just fun. That's all you remember, is having a lot of fun on his last party, really, that was going to be for him. And again, he made it as fun as it possibly could. And that just sticks out, really, is that, again, nothing was ever miserable. It was all about living your life. And that's how it was. You know, he just continued to do his job. He hardly took any time off. He accepted every invitation to every party he received. You know, a week before he died, I was walking up South Front and came up behind a big guy and what looked like an old man, actually, and it was Jimmy. He was severely ill at that point, but he'd been watching his rugby team play against Tunbridge on Derby, I think, and this guy with him was a friend from Wigan. And you know, asked Jimmy how he was doing, and we talked about the team, and he was scathing about the Wellington team that he'd coached. You know, they'd won, but he said that they were just a bunch of soft Southerners, that we were fat, that we were arrogant, that we should front up and play rugby properly. And you know, he's disappointed they hadn't been listening to him all term, or so he thought. And he asked me permission whether he could take the team up to Wigan for the week to teach them what life is really like. We always knew he had talent and everything, but just to know afterwards was quite moving and just a massive surprise to everyone. He sang brilliantly. I didn't know he could sing at that point. It was his friends from university who knew, and just happened to have a song that he'd sang with a teacher that was here as well, Mr. Walmsley, John Walmsley, and none of us had any clue. So, and in fact, when we heard the song, Isn't She Lovely, and him singing, all of us were saying, are you sure that's him? And we were phoning his dad to ask, saying, is that him? We couldn't believe it. Could not believe that was him. And he was so modest, he would never want you to know. And it was perfect on how it happened. He wouldn't have wanted to see us do. He would quietly be proud, but he wouldn't want
us to know beforehand. So it was quite apt that we knew afterwards.
He did record some tracks, including Isn't She Lovely on an album. But what happened was a Durham University friend of his emailed me and said, look, we captured, we've made a single out of Isn't She Lovely? Somebody I think had it on email or something like that. And they wanted to make a single out of it for the Jimmy Higham Bursary Fund.
We decided to try and make it viral. It went very viral very quickly through Facebook, through Twitter, through every single media network we could possibly get. But we only could do that with the support of the community. A group, obviously, of the WTV gang were immense in trying to get that out there. The pupils themselves just got on board.
That was the first moment I thought, crumbs, is this real? Can we do this? Is it that good? And they felt so, and Durham University, these friends from Durham got in behind it, and then the Wellington community just fell in love with the song and the story and went for it. And that's what happened, it ended up being a real success.
Some people didn't know him as well as others. And it was just exciting, I think, for the whole school to actually watch and listen to the charts on a Sunday just to hear his song being played.
It was difficult to believe, wasn't it, that a person who was dead, who'd never knowingly recorded anything, could have an iTunes hit in the way that he did. And, the song, I think, got to number 11 in the iTunes chart, with Chris Evans and a whole load of celebrities, rugby players, Will Greenwood, Will Carling, others, getting in behind it.
Chris Evans on Radio 2 was fantastic, Will Carling was fantastic. Anyone who was involved in Wellington managed to get it and spread the message. So for me, it was the community side of it that just made it very special and very exciting. It got everyone together to just see something that we were familiar with be so successful.
It was just an amazing month. And I think everybody at Wellington will remember it very fondly because it sort of brought everybody together. The kids just went berserk on Facebook and on Twitter. And it was just an amazing time, extraordinary, surreal. The WTV team got stuck in on the video, which again sort of energised the whole community. And you can see it in the video. You can see the magic, really. So that's what I would say about the single and about the video. I think it was the community coming together. You can include the OWs in that. You can include Durham University. You can include people at Wigan, Rossall Rugby Football Club. Jimmy's family, who have been absolutely outstanding through all of this.
Well, he's still having an effect. It's 2 years next week since we lost him, and he's still having that effect. We're still doing things like this. Nobody accepts that, his name is gone and we're not going to remember him. Everyone is still on board about keeping his name alive. So look at the effect he's having still now. We have the current third form who didn't know Jimmy unless the siblings did. We've just done the Wellington 10K. That was huge. That was in his memory. That's going to be a yearly event. We're trying to get events that are happening annually to keep that name going. And just the effect he had whilst he was here is still happening when he's not here. Like I've said before, his humour, his fun, his enjoyment of teaching, passing on what he knew and what he really cared about kids was quite an inspiration.
The song and the video enabled us to again celebrate Jimmy's life, make something of it, and make something of it in the sense that he can live on in the Bursary Fund, and in the song and the video contributed massively to that and made, I don't know, something like £12,000.
And his name's still out there now and he's not here. That says something. That says a lot about what Jimmy was all about and what he'd done. He'd be quietly happy about what's going on, but he'd be embarrassed if he was here. He'd hate it. But no, I think for us, it's just the fact that he was inspirational here and being not here, it's still carrying on, which is great.
and it's a great tribute to Jimmy. Wonderful.
Yeah, Jimmy, of course, never knew about the bursary, but it's again got his name attached to it. It's trying to help people who are similar to Jimmy from his background. Some people never have the privilege of getting a bursary to somewhere like Wellington.
Well, what we'd like to do is to have at least £400,000 raised to enable somebody from Jimmy's background to replicate Jimmy's path.
Jimmy didn't have the honour of having a bursary to a school like Wellington, but he got the chance to go to Rossall School.
Suddenly he became more academic, more interested in what he could do in life, and it helped his rugby. And he got a place at Durham University, and I just don't think that would have happened if that bursary hadn't been given to him. And from Durham he became a postgrad here, and who knows what he'd have done in the teaching game, and I think he could have done whatever he wanted to do in teaching, actually.
And it came from there, really, that we thought, well, if he had that chance, he really changed as a person. He says that himself. His family said that. It changed everything about where he was going with life, onto Durham and then here. And it's just giving someone who was similar to Jimmy, who wouldn't have those opportunities, to have a chance at a school like Wellington. So we're looking forward to welcoming the first person in, boy or girl, and it's going to be very exciting to have his name attached to something so special. All I think about, I refuse to think of Jimmy in the latter stages. I always think very positively about him and his hair. He always had loads of hair, curly hair. That always sticks in my mind about how he had loads of hair, and his humour. I can relate to him because he came from my neck of the woods. My memories are very special, but just in terms of when he's around college, just how he was with everyone, how he was popular, how he was with the kids. I'd love to have that same relationship. I'd love to get something from that and keep it for myself and just learn from how he could be with people, how he approached people. But memories are just fun, enjoyment. I always smile when I think of him, which is great, and that's what he'd love. He'd want you to smile. He had this wicked sense of humour that most people would not get away with what he said, but he just had a way of getting his message across in a nice, fun, kind way.
In fact, most of the humour that Jimmy used was unrepeatable. And there were some emails that were sent to the whole of Common Room which I couldn't possibly describe to you, which at one level was very rude, but at another level was quite hysterical.
He'd always be the one behind the pranks but never get caught. So that pretty much sums up how much fun he had and how he was able to get away with things.
He was funny, he was lively, he told the truth, sometimes very bluntly, both to members of staff, to second masters, to his friends. Whoever came into contact with Jimmy, he would tell you the truth. He just loved to party and loved life, and loved teaching, and loved Wellington, and loved everybody here. And it was just charisma, I suppose you could say. But not somebody who was flamboyant. He wasn't that. He was a down-to-earth northerner who spoke his mind. But he definitely had charisma. People warmed to Jimmy. How to live, how to have fun, how to work hard, how to value what we have, how to deal with terminal illness, how to confront death, how to have immense courage and huge leadership, how to be a force for good, but above all, I think how to have fun and to be a good friend.
So long, Jimmy, so long.